Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have with us Miss Jyotsna Beliappa ma'am for our today's VCM on the topic Impact of COVID-19 on the Economy. She is an internationally certified social responsibility auditor. She founded Blue Sky Sustainable Business LLP, the only accredited independent inspection body for the CSR projects. Her expertise lies in applying global social standards in assessing social and governance equity for BRSR and other ESG narratives. As a certified independent director, she has a holistic view of sustainability challenges from the broad room to the last player in the value chain. So, with this short introduction, I would request Ms. Jyotsna ma'am to please take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikita. And welcome to all the participants who have very diligently agreed to attend a session at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I sincerely hope all of you have not had a very heavy lunch. And I hope you will be asking a lot of questions and interacting with me. Just one few issues of the hygiene is that I don't think our session is interactive as such, but there is a chat window where you might not be putting your questions, but there will be a lot of questions that I keep asking, which you might want to answer in yes or no or maybe or something like that. So our interaction is going to be very much on a chat box through yes or no. But I really want you people to list out your questions and send it to Sonali. I suppose you know how to do that. Nikita?
Yes,
Nikita,
ma'am.
how do they put the questions on?
Ma'am, through chat they can ask.
Okay, through chat they can ask. Okay, fine.
Yes.
So the way we have planned this session is that we would be leaving almost about 20 minutes towards the end of the session for a lot of exchange of ideas and questions and clarifications. Please feel free and please don't wait till the end. Please keep putting up your questions as and when a thought crosses your mind. I would also appreciate a lot of questions because the next 2 hours, I'm going to introduce you to some very a different perspective. I understand that 100% of you people who are here today in this session are from the finance and accounting background, but I'm going to sort of give you a newer perspective of looking at all the finance and accounting perspective from a very social metric point of view. New ideas, evolving science, and I want a lot of questions. Hopefully, I have an answer for a few. Even if I don't, there is always, we can always be in touch and see how we push the boundaries of this new knowledge to the next level. Yeah? So is that okay? I want a bit of yes, because there's one issue about doing this, in a virtual mode is that as a speaker, you almost don't have any clues as to how's the reaction and all that. So do please write in the chat if this is acceptable to you, this way of working, these questions that you're going to be asking is something that you would be ready to do. Is that right? Could I have a few yeses and nos? I'd just love to see the chat box pinging away.
Ma'am, actually, chat box is not accessible to them. So we have a different platform for the participants. So at the end, we can take the queries.
Okay. they can't even say yes or no. They can't. The chat box is not accessible to them at all.
No, ma'am. Through Zoom, they can't access it.
Okay. Okay, then we'll have to do it very blindly. Um, just give me a minute. Okay, so we're here from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and I have distributed this thing in three sessions in order to sort of get a break in and have some interaction, which I'm told cannot happen. Okay. So the three sessions that we are looking at is the first session. I'm going to be introducing the concept of impact. The name of the session is impact of COVID-19 on the economy, and coming from a social and a financial background, I would like to reinterpret the term impact for you all. Yeah. Uh, and the second session will be very much focused on the impact of COVID on economy, impact of COVID-19 on economy. And we're going to look at the different aspects of impact that has happened. And, a lot of us can talk about all the things that have gone wrong in the last 2 years. There's so much of destruction and havoc and disruption which has happened, but we have to get over it. And that is why I have put in another 40 minutes to basically discuss the impact, like not only about the impact, but how do we get over it? What is it that we're going to focus on? What is it that is going to change in terms of risks and opportunity through the ESG lens? I am introducing, a lot of you might be familiar with the word ESG, environment, social, and governance. It is going to be one of the biggest concepts which will influence the way financial and accounting services will evolve over the next few years. So we'll be looking at ESG. So what do you understand by the term impact? I'm so sorry, but I had designed this interaction for some interaction at least, but fine, since it's not there, I'll have to just go ahead with it. What do you understand by the term impact? So impact, there are many. The first time I came across the word impact, I basically remember it was in reference to the impact of an earthquake, the impact of a punch, or impact of the market falling, or so impact in whichever field it is used, whether in the field of science or whether in the field of monetary trends, or whether in the regular thing. Impact essentially means the delta change that happens. Yeah. So what impact of COVID-19 on the economy is basically we are looking at what are the changes that happened because of COVID-19. Yeah, just give me a minute. Okay. So, and in whenever we look at impact, fine. When we talk about COVID, we talk about the negative impact, but impact essentially comes with the inherent understanding that impact can be positive or impact can be negative. There is a tendency in India that we tend to look for impact, which is always positive. So if you have gone through some impact assessment reports of big companies, if you have looked at the sustainability reports and you have looked at the climate impact, you will tend to see that most of the businesses tend to think that they have a positive impact. But I think in all honesty, it is important for us to realize that there is also a negative impact. There is, for anything, any change that we see, there is a positive and a negative impact. And as long as the positive is more than the negative, we can assume that we've had a positive impact. Yeah. There is a tendency to not refer to an negative impact, but the fact is, I would like this group to understand that there is always a positive and always a negative impact. Similarly, there's a spelling mistake here. It's not intended, it's unintended. So there is the impact. Also, the other dimension that impact needs to be measured is intended and unintended. So there is, I mean, obviously, we all would like our intended impact to be positive, but there could be unintended unintended consequences of the impact, which could also be negative. Or you could even be in a situation where you have unintended impact, which is positive. Yeah. For example, I think one of the biggest positive impacts that have happened out of COVID is the fact that digital payments have really become ingrained into our society. If it was not for COVID, digital payments would have taken another at least 5 to 7 years to reach the state that they have reached now. So while COVID had an intended negative impact, there was also an unintended positive impact that came out of COVID. So whenever you all as finance and accounting professionals think of impact, please keep all these 4 dimensions sort of at the back of your mind for you to understand that it could be positive and negative, it could be intended and unintended, it could be positive, unintended, it could be intended, negative. That's the least, that's something that we would avoid. But yeah, the combination happens. There are various permutation combinations that happens. And like what we talked about, financial, the impact is available. If you put on the impact assessment lens, it is available in any line of thought or any service that you would be offering, whether it's financial, whether it's in social terms or in environment terms. For example, again, I'm so sorry, I have no clue about where you people are coming from, but just to talk about an environment thing, you must be reading a lot of what do you call reports, sustainability. You must be hearing about the COP26, and you're hearing about the carbon net zero commitments that people are making. So there is an intended positive impact in helping, in reforestation and in planting trees and all. But there could also be a unintended negative impact if all the trees that are being planted are of a similar variety, there is no diversity, or if they are not of the local variety. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that impact has to be looked, whether you're talking about planting trees or whether you're talking about finances, you have to look at it both ways. Yeah. I would like to, Nikita introduced me, as a social auditor, but I come with an economics background, and I have always, from the very start of my career, I have always enjoyed looking at impact from multifaceted angles, which gives me the true idea about where and how a particular activity is adding up. I would like to share with you recently a project that we did on impact assessment, where one of our clients who had invested quite a lot of money in educating women to join a factory, a garment factory. Okay. And this was a factory quite deep into Rajasthan, where the gender equity was a big issue. Women were in parda and they wouldn't really come and work in the factories. But with a lot of effort, with a lot of planned this thing, they worked with the panchayat, they worked with the village elders, and they managed to get a lot of women to start coming into the garment, start working. So from a target from actually 7%, they went up to about 32% of the workforce became women over a period of 4 years, which was a phenomenal achievement. But beyond 32, the number of women employed was just not going up. Okay, and when they went deeper into the issues, they found that a lot of new people would not like to join, or even the people who had been trained for 4 years were dropping off the workforce because of domestic violence. Okay, so now you would say, what is the impact of this particular program of employing women in the factories grew from 7% to 32%. So you would say that's a very positive impact. Of course, it's a positive impact, but there was an unintended negative impact, which we got to know later, was because the women were earning, because there was additional cash in the house, the alcoholism had gone up. The alcoholism had gone up, and the consequent, what do you call, domestic violence had gone up. And in terms of social, so when we were talking about it in financial terms, we were saying, yes, there's a huge positive impact, but there were unintended social negative impacts. So whenever you're talking about impact, you have to look at it from many angles. So we're going to come on impact of COVID, but I'm just laying the foundation for this, which is basically that there are 5 dimensions of impact. Okay, so there are 5 dimensions of impact. Like we talked about 4 dimensions of consequences, which is positive, negative, intended, unintended. And then we're talking about impact, which is having 5 dimensions. The first and impact in the shortest way that you can explain is the delta change that is perceived because of a particular activity that you have done. Okay. And what is the outcome? What is the change? The first dimension is that because of your activity, the delta change. What is the delta change? And what are you contributing? And how important are the outcomes? In this particular case, I'm talking about an enterprise. What outcomes the enterprise is contributing to create a change? What is that change? Okay. And it could be, the outcome levels in a period, threshold. And next comes who experiences the change. So there is an impact. So what is the change? Who experiences the change? Yeah, it is extremely important to understand this, because many a times we do a particular project, or let's say when we are talking about the impact of COVID-19 on economy, you have to be very careful to set the scope as to what was the change and who experienced the change. So, for example, when you're talking about impact of COVID-19, impact on a particular society, impact on Jyotsna as a member of XYZ society will be slightly different from the impact of Jyotsna who runs a business or who runs a digital payment business. You get what I mean to say? So I, as a consumer, will experience change differently as compared to I, as a member of a community which is undergoing COVID havoc. So when you're talking about impact, it is important to understand what is the change that you're referring to, what is the scope of the change that you're referring to, and who is experiencing that change. The third is how much. Yeah, how much change are you going through? So how much effect, and especially over a period of time. And this is where sustainability will come in, but I'm not going to go too much into that. So we're talking about how much change happened, how long did the change happen? How long was the impact? Now, look, we will be looking at it in the coming next session as to how COVID has, how's the effect of the COVID over, how long will the effect of COVID last? There will be certain aspects where the effect of COVID, how much change that has happened will affect for very long. Maybe it will have changed the course of the business. But there are many aspects where the effect of COVID is already getting over. because this is also very important. The number of people who go through the change, degree of change experienced by the stakeholder, and duration. Yeah. Again, can you see how complicated impact becomes when you start going deep into it? Because there's so many different angles that you have to look at impact on. And of course, you as a business will have to see what would have happened, how much of the change that is happening is because of your contribution. This particular aspect does not apply in terms of COVID, because it'll only apply if you as your organization has contributed to address the effects of COVID. But this is not so important in reference to the COVID discussion that we are going to be having, because this is, as finance people, as finance and accounting people, you would, I think, like to start. I mean, you might be curious to look at risk in terms of the impact. So impact basically there will be a change. There will be a lot of delta changes that will happen, and it will be important to understand which of those risks are significant. Similarly, it will be important to understand which of the opportunities are significant. So for every impact, for every delta change that happens, there has to be an acknowledgement that there is a risk and there is a opportunity. And the type of risk, I really don't know whether you people look at these risks. We in the social world, not exactly in the social world. I come with an investing world background. In the investing background, we look at these 10 risk factors, which is evidence risk, external risk, execution risk, stakeholder participation risk, drop-off risk, unexpected impact risk, which was all COVID about, efficiency risk, contribution risk, alignment risk, and endurance risk. So for every impact, we start looking at these different types of risk. So pulling the conversation back to impact and impact of COVID-19, there is, I hope I have sort of introduced all of you to the depth of the discussion that needs to happen where COVID is involved, when you're starting to look at the impact that COVID has on your business, on your society, on your activities. The discussion on impact of COVID-19 is multi-dimensional, and hence needs to be, at least need to be aware that it is not as simple as saying that the number of people in the poverty has gone up or gone down. Yeah. I have a small video for you here. If you realize, we talked about impact and we talked about the different dimensions of impact. We talked about a lot of different perspectives of impact. But the root cause of most of the impact that happens is because of man. Yeah, because of us, because of people like us. And I think it is, I'm sharing a video with you. I hope you like it. But it sort of shows that how the impact starts with the way the man behaves, with we as a humanity. How are we behaving, and how are we literally, the impact that we as humans, with our bad habits and our consumerism and our greed, the impact that we are making on this world. I hope you like this video. Um, the main idea of sharing this video with you all is the fact that we can talk about impact on the economy, we can talk about impact on investing, we can talk about $1 trillion worth of investments and all that. But ultimately, unless and until man understands the impact that that he's having on all the other things in the planet, be it plants or animals or air or water or everything, man has got one of the worst impacts on all the living organisms that we share this world with. And I thought this was a good time when we are talking about the meaning of impact to sort of put a point across to you that we as human beings have to first understand what is our impact on this world. We need to get clarity on that before we can really start looking at to put the discussion of impact of COVID on the economy in context. Impact of COVID on the economy is a consequence of the impact that we as humans have on this world. And so when you're talking about that, keep that in mind. Like, that's the fundamental understanding that we need to have. I am so sorry, but we don't have any questions, nothing that we can discuss currently. So we will move on to session 2, which is we're going to spend some time on impact of COVID on economy. Yeah. Nikita? Is Nikita there?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions, or do we move on to the second?
Ma'am, right now there are no questions.
Oh, fine. Okay, fine. So we will move on to the second session, which is basically on the impact of COVID on the economy. And so I have taken certain sectors where the impact has been negative, of course, and I've also taken some sectors where the impact has been positive. Yeah. But most importantly, before we move on to the economy bit of it, I would like to talk about the impact that COVID has had on individuals like you and me. I think impact the COVID wreaked disaster on us like it is unprecedented. Even the World War II had less uh, damage than what this invisible virus has had on us. And while we will talk about the numbers in the coming slides, I also want to take this opportunity to say that uh, COVID has had the biggest impact on mental health, and I'm not very sure whether it is being discussed enough in India. But I think the issues of bereavement, the loss of loved ones, the loss or the fear of having loved ones in the hospitals, the lack of social interaction, isolation, and managing grief has been one of the biggest impacts of COVID. And how does this affect the economy? This affects the economy because economy at the end of the day is run by human beings, and having a very large set of people who have been affected, who are mentally tired and ill, uh, will have huge issues on the way the economy develops. Um, we don't have too many numbers in India, but in the West, there is a wave of what you call mass resignations. Yeah, because I think in some ways the COVID sort of brought into focus the purpose of life. And there are so many people who are opting, who have had, you know, very deep personal experiences during COVID, which has sort of brought them back to questioning the purpose of their life. And many of them will sort of do not believe that the purpose of their life is a 9 to 6 job, which is not mentally or emotionally stimulating. So one of the impacts of COVID has been what you call the great mass resignation that is happening, where a lot of people are opting to move out of formal employment. You don't hear that in India because in India we're still a developing economy, and for us, roti kapda or makan is still quite a overwhelmingly big issue for us. But yes, you do see a lot of people not wanting to come back to a regular 9 to 5 jobs, wanting to prefer to work out of home, agreeing to take a bit of a salary cut, agreeing to take a salary cut as long as they can spend time, have a work-life balance. So that the impact that COVID has had on the economy is a lot on the soft skills and on personal issues like mental health. COVID has also impacted hugely the talent pool, you know, of all the things that we had thought that we are masters in XYZ, this science, that science. It's almost null and void now. The biggest economic issue that is going to come up in the next 2 to 3 years, mark my word, is the fact that we're going to find it extremely difficult to find talent to cope up with the post-COVID world. A post-COVID world is going to be extremely different from what we know. I mean, look at it yourself, like the finance and the accounting sectors. Now, almost everything you could almost do it remotely. All your information is all digitized, and this whole thing about reams of papers and files and big offices is almost not a requirement. It will continue for some time, but as you will see that over the next 10 years, the way you people will be looking at finance, how you actually do your jobs is going to be extremely different from what it is today. And that's what I mean by saying the impact. These are the soft impacts on the way uh, economy is changing, in just the sheer way the business is done, the type of talents we are looking for. And there will be a huge need for reskilling and relearning all the new things that will be required for a post-COVID world. Uh, Another thing that I wanted to say before we get down to the numbers is that the whole thing about mental health, the fact that organizations and businesses will have to cater to mental health, whether you as a peer to your colleague or you as a boss to your subordinate, and this whole issue of mental health and dealing with mental health is going to be a large part of managing your teams. So, I mean, this personally for me has been one of the best, one of the most interesting uh, impacts, which I actually, if you had met me in 2019 and told me mental health will become a big issue in organizations, I would have laughed. And I would have said, what are you saying? Like, we don't, in India, we don't even acknowledge mental health. But going forward, this is going to be a huge impact in the way we work. And hence, the economy is the softer skills of mental health and all start becoming important points to discuss while running a business. Coming down to the numbers, food and agriculture, luckily for us, our food and agriculture was not very badly affected since agriculture is the backbone of the country. And since it was recognized as an essential category very early in the disaster, the impact on food and agriculture has been pretty low. But that is about production of food and agriculture. But if you look at the poverty of the farmers, if you look at the poverty of the agricultural labor, that has been affected very, very badly. Of course, again, because quite a lot of farm labor is unorganized and underrepresented, we don't have a real picture of it. But yes, so while food and agriculture as a sector did not suffer too much, the people in this particular sector have paid a huge impact for COVID. Aviation and tourism, I think I specifically pulled this number here because I think this is one sector which has suffered the most. And I hope you know, I'm sure you know that tourism is one of the largest industry in the world. Yeah, it's bigger than any other industry, and tourism as an industry has taken the biggest blow because of COVID. And look at the number. 9.2% is the contribution of tourism to GDP. Yeah, and it is expected that 38 million layoffs, which you can imagine just the sheer impact of COVID on tourism and aviation when it reads that 70% of the total workforce has been laid off. That's phenomenally big. Yeah, it has almost killed the sector. Tourism will come again in a new format. You must have seen all the horrific pictures of the revenge tourism that is happening, the way people are, they're so sick of being locked in the house that people are just getting out of their house and going to tourist places. You saw that what is happening. So tourism will happen, but it will be very, very, hopefully, very, very locally bound, nearby, where you can go in the car, where you don't have to, travel for days on end. Those type of tourism will see a big boost, but it will be nothing compared to the tourism of the previous time. And the industries may incur losses of about 85 billion rupees due to travel restrictions. Yeah. But having said that, there has been a resurgence of non-contact travel, and again a whole new technology which is coming up in. But it is the tourism, what we knew before 2020 will never come back. Tourism will come, but it will be in a very different way. Telecom, I mean, this was again a backbone. It survived very well. It was a boon. It was a blessing during the COVID, and I think it matured in such speed, in such space, that if it was not for COVID, what we would have seen in the next 10 years, we saw it in a matter of a year. That was the pace of growth, whether it was Arogya Setu or whether it was, the sheer, what do you call, collection of information, data, sharing of information, numbers. It was a phenomenal this sector shaped up to COVID in a way that was unimaginable. It was also a backbone for a lot of professionals like you and me. Otherwise, imagine if we did not have the telecom sector, all of us would have been employed, pushing the economy to absolutely the depths of this thing. And but again, telecom brought out the huge inequity in the digital. I mean, the what do you call, Wi-Fi inequity in our world. And I'm sure you would have heard about the fact that one of the biggest impacts that has happened is on the education, especially the school education, because of the fact that almost for 2 years, a very huge percentage of our population has not had any aspects of any relation to education. The number of child labor has gone up, as well as it has pushed the education levels by at least another 5 years. I don't know how many of you have children, or I don't know how many of you have teachers in your family, but if you ever talk to them, you will say that it has been with the kids coming back to school, it is a disaster for the teachers, because they have almost forgotten everything that they had learned all this time, whether it is how to behave or how to write or the spelling or whatever. It's almost like they've been pushed back 5 years in the last 2 years. This is for the people. Only 17% of the children in India, only 17% of children in India have access to Wi-Fi. So they had some some aspect of online learning, but the balanced children had nothing. And so while we did well in the telecom sector on many levels, it also brought out the huge gaps and the way we have to go forward in ensuring that there is equity in Wi-Fi for all the people. Pharmaceuticals, again, a certain aspect of it has done brilliantly. But again, a certain aspects have, because of the ban on export of drugs and all, and there has been a huge setback in the pharmaceuticals profitability. But having said that, this particular sector has also contributed greatly during the impact. I mean, it has contributed greatly to address the impact of the COVID. This is again, as you can see, all the sectors that I have chosen has got both angles. Yeah. So while in the Indian oil and gas, the consumptions has fallen drastically, and hence the consequent pollutions and all that has drastically fallen. But the fact remains that it has also, because of the fall in this thing, there has been a decline in the auto and industrial manufacturing also, which again links up to the economy, it links up to employment and economy and all that. So on one hand, this sector, the impact of COVID on oil and gas sector was, yes, because of the reduced consumption, huge amount of, we saw such clear skies, we breathed clean air. But again, because of the fact that the consumption was so low, the manufacturing sector was so badly hit, unemployment went up drastically, as did poverty. Okay, so we talked about the good and the bad of how it has affected the economy. And what I take away as what I would like to focus on in terms of the impact of COVID-19 is that it has opened up the doors of innovation. It has opened up the doors. It has the type of innovation that we are seeing is what makes it very exciting. And this innovation would never have happened if COVID hadn't pushed us to such desperate situations. And this is a longish video, so I'm just going to truncate it into 2 or 3 minutes, the first 2 minutes and the last 2 minutes. Yeah.
There's a less familiar story about COVID-19. The crisis is boosting innovation with the emergence of brand new ideas.
mRNA vaccine, a new technology.
And with the application of existing ones in surprising new ways.
The crisis has caused an acceleration in adoption of technologies.
This is pushing the world further into the future.
We've had to build more airplanes than we ever have before.
Often at breakneck speed.
We just closed £350 million.
Businesses are being forced to adapt.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Amazing.
Or face extinction.
Another hammer blow to Britain's retail sector.
This upsurge in innovation will bring lasting change for good and bad.
Could you get into your computer? This is my kid's future.
So what lessons can be learned as the world looks towards the post-pandemic era?
There is an opportunity for innovation to stay at the cutting edge.
I haven't seen this. Is this a new piece? What is this part?
The front of the fuse.
Got it.
This is the headquarters of Zipline, a drone manufacturing company.
This is 3D printed?
Yeah.
They're all molded now.
Oh, this is plastic now, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Since the pandemic, the business has really taken off. Drone technology has been around for a while. But during the pandemic, it's starting to realize its considerable potential. With social distancing the new normal, health systems around the world are now looking at drones as a new and better way to deliver products, such as blood, cancer treatments, and vaccines.
Every hospital system and health system on Earth is suddenly trying to reconfigure itself to a new reality, to extend the reach of the hospital system directly into the home, enabling care closer to where patients live, so they have to travel less, it's more convenient, and the patient takes less risk of getting infected if they need to access general care.
From mid-June to September 2020, Zipline delivered more than 100,000 medical products, as many as over the previous 3 years.
And we've done a few things. The center wing covers are now.
When did that change?
Coming years.
They've discovered that actually,
for many large and small companies, working from home has been the most significant innovation to come out of the pandemic.
If you're putting your energy in focusing on your flaws, they will grow.
In 2020, COVID-19 turned a little-known tech firm into one of the success stories of the pandemic. At the start of the year, about 10 million people were taking part in meetings over Zoom each day. But this had shot up to 300 million by April 2020. And the widespread adoption of remote working during the pandemic could lead to further innovation in future.
They will grow. But if you put your
more companies may be inclined to take risks and embrace new ideas in the coming years.
they've discovered that actually working from home can work really well and doesn't seem to make people less productive, may make people more productive. That will mean that after the crisis, companies will be more willing to keep some of those behaviours, maybe have less business travel, maybe have more working from home, and maybe even dare to try other things that they were reluctant to. So it's just allowing them to be tested and not punishing people if they don't work, because that's just going to put them off.
Some of the most groundbreaking ideas require the right opportunity and circumstances to demonstrate their value. 2 decades ago, e-learning emerged as a radical new idea, predicted to transform the world of education. But such predictions fell flat.
Sending all students home for the rest of this semester after a coronavirus outbreak on campus.
Until COVID-19 struck and the potential of remote learning became clear.
Last week, one of the questions that I had for you is, what do you think it means to be healthy?
The online education market is set to nearly quadruple between 2019 and 2026.
The pandemic has really changed the culture inside educational institutions and made them more open to adopting e-learning. Online learning democratizes learning to a great extent. It has allowed students to really customize learning to their needs. You could complete an entire degree online because you may be in a part of the world where it's very difficult for you to commute to a university.
The culture change around online learning seems here to stay, but with it comes a reminder that new innovations can also struggle to overcome some old challenges. For full-time university student and mum of 3, Christina Holly, studying before the pandemic was going well.
Every semester I got A's and B's. I was meeting and beating my own expectations. Popsicle, that was the one. And my kids were studying really hard and grades were good.
But now, Christina is unable to afford the technology required to allow her family to participate in the switch to e-learning.
Having the transition to online education was terrible. There weren't enough devices in the home. I'm gonna try and restart the internet first. Using one Chromebook for 3 children is terrible. First of all, their schedules were at the same time. So when you have all 3 of you have to start school at 8:30 on one Chromebook, it's impossible.
According to America's Education Department, nearly 1 in 8 children do not have internet access via a desktop or laptop at home. Digital learning looks likely to entrench social inequality in the post-pandemic world.
The reliance on technology has really surfaced these inequalities that existed before, but that were not as present because everyone was in a room together.
Christina says that falling behind could force her to become a part-time student, and that this will reduce her financial aid and affect her ability to pay for her college studies.
I hate to even think about what that means because this is my life. You know, this is my kids' future. There is really no other option for me other than school. This is what I need to do in order to bring us out of poverty.
Many of the innovations that have flourished during the crisis are centered around digital technology and will have become part of everyday life when the world returns to more ordinary times. Technologists and policymakers face the challenge of ensuring these new innovations do not entrench inequality, but instead broaden opportunity.
I think that this is really an important chance for humanity to not only bring new technology to bear, but for the first time bring it to bear in a way that is equitable for humans on Earth.
Hello, I'm Tom Standage, Deputy Editor at the Economy.
So this session was, I hope you sort of got an idea on
there's a less familiar
on how, like the impact of COVID on the economy has also increased the inequity in the population. Something as simple as education, access to Wi-Fi. Luckily, I think India did phenomenally well. It did brilliantly well in the access to vaccinations, where we did not see inequity. But if you look at the inequity between countries, the fact that many countries in Africa haven't even started, don't even have the means of starting the vaccination, and thus keeping the whole world as risky as ever. So COVID, one of the biggest things that COVID highlighted in the economy was the inequity that is there in the populations of this world. It could be between people, between citizens of the same country, or it could be between countries. But you, as finance and accounting professionals, it will be an interesting aspect to keep in mind about the inequity that is surfacing in the world. This inequity is also the reason why we are seeing so many wars, so many disagreements, and so many conflicts, which is almost pushing the world towards the brink of a war. So you might say, what does COVID have to do with war? But the fact is that there is a huge level of insecurity that many populations are going through. There is a huge amount of vulnerability of the population, which is giving rise to a lot of supranationalism and the conflicts are on the rise because everybody feels a bit too much of vulnerability and insecurity. This is what I had. I had a few questions, but I can't ask that. So this is what I had for you people in the second session. And should we go, Nikita, should we move on to the third session?
Ma'am, there is only one question and other have, I think, already taken up. And the question, the member has asked to repeat about the first dimension.
Has asked about what?
To repeat about first dimension.
Of what? What is the change?
Yes, ma'am, what?
Okay, so fine. We will, we'll do that. We will, let's see if there are more questions. I understand that you're saying that we should discuss something over, you need more clarity on the first dimension of impact, which is on what changed. Yeah. So we can do that. Let me just quickly finish this session. This session is about addressing COVID impact, risk and opportunity through the ESG lens. I understand. See, there is, I wish you could have told me what are the type of changes that you're seeing in your sector, in your chart as chartered accountants. What are the type of changes that you are seeing because of COVID? And I would have loved to hear from you. I would have loved to learn from you because we come from different sectors, and it would be very interesting to see to understand what you consider as impact. But anyhow, I will share with you what we predict as major changes which is going to be happening because of the COVID on the economy. One is businesses are going to start looking at risks and opportunities through the ESG lens. I'm not very sure. I had a lot of questions to ask you on ESG, but I assume that you people know about it. And for the people who do not know ESG as a term, it's a term which has already, all of a sudden, become extremely important for business. ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. So when it's a very investor centric, or it's a very investor dimension word. But I think it is very important for all of us to understand ESG, because investment in business will be on the basis of the risks and opportunities seen on environment, social, and governance. So businesses which are addressing the risks in terms of environment or investing in opportunities of the impact of their business on environment, similarly social and governance, are the ones which are going to be getting a lot more investment and a lot more focus of growth as compared to organizations which are not. I mean, I don't want to take too many names, but there are many international investors who were investing in India, but have started stopping investments on any coal-powered, any manufacturing or any sector which uses coal-powered energy. Now, you might say India is 70% coal-powered energy, and we're on a brink of running short of coal and facing huge power outages. Yeah, and see, look at the risk. Look at the risk of depending on coal-backed energy, and there are already huge setbacks for organizations which are using coal-backed energy, which is giving rise to, which gives an opportunity to look into renewable energy. Yeah. So COVID impact, one of the things that is going to come out of COVID impact, the resilience, the resurgence of business will be looking at the risks of currently running your business like the way you used to, and the opportunities. The resilience and the resurgence will be based on the opportunity that the new post-COVID life is throwing up. Okay, so it's on E, S, and G: environmental, social, and governance. India, we do very well on governance, at least in the laws, our books, our statutory requirement on governance is very good. Environment, there is no way, I mean, climate change is on our doorsteps. There is no way we can ignore it. And there is a lot, environment metrics is almost about 40 to 50 years old. We can measure our environmental footprint. Of course, there's still a lot to do, but at least we are much better than social metrics. Now, the S of the ESG is where we are the least prepared to deal with for the COVID impact. COVID impact and environment, we know what is happening. I don't know whether we can deal with it, but at least we know where the problem is. Governance, we're okay, but social, we are nowhere near managing the issues. So ESG is going to be a very important aspect of how business grows over the next 10, 15 years. The trend has already started, and you will hear a lot more about it. Now, ESG is basically, as the name suggests, environmental, social, and governance, but it is not linked to any deliverables or targets. Yeah, it is not linked to any specific standards that you can refer to. Yeah, so your ESG, I as an investor, Jyotsna as an investor might say, I'm very keen on this aspect, on carbon footprint aspect of environment, whereas you as Nikita might be very interested in the water footprint, and we both might be right. So the ESG world currently is in a great chaos, because it does not refer to any particular standard. Whatever is relevant and significant to you, you could make that your standard. So to address that confusion, there is an emergence of a new concept, new standard, which is called Sustainable Development Goals. Now, India is it's really committed on SDG, that is Sustainable Development Goals, and most of our development programs are linked or aligned to SDGs. So that's what all the countries are going to be committing to. They have committed to a particular standard by 2030 for the Sustainable Development Goals, and India is doing a phenomenally diligent job on SDGs. Okay, so I was wondering whether I should show this video, but I would like to show this video so that we're all on the same plane as to what is this Sustainable Development Goals. Before we start this video, you might say, why am I looking at Sustainable Development Goals and what does it have to do with the impact of COVID-19? Why this video, or why understanding Sustainable Development Goals is extremely important is that post-COVID, when we are talking about a resilient economy, when we are talking about strengthening our economy, these are the goals that we will be focused on. And it's not only we as in India, but the entire world is focused on these goals, which is why I would like to share this with you.
Hi folks, Alex here. In 2015, the United Nations set up 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, that were adopted by 193 countries. And our mission is to achieve these goals by 2030. In this video, we are going to talk about the SDG wedding cake and two other interesting ways you can use these goals to see if your country or your business is sustainable. Okay, let's get drawing. Hi folks, Alex here. In 2015, the United Nations set up 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, that were adopted by 193 countries. And our mission is to achieve these goals by 2030. In this video, we are going to talk about the SDG wedding cake and two other interesting ways you can use these goals to see if your country or your business is sustainable. Okay, let's get drawing. On this channel, we share tools to help you change the world, so subscribe if that's of interest to you. The Resilience Center suggested organizing the SDGs into three layers. The environment as the foundation, supporting society, which supports the economy. This is like the triple bottom line, or the three pillars of sustainability that I presented in another video. I put a link in the description below. Essentially, sustainability is about meeting human needs within ecological constraints, and the economy is a strategy to make money while achieving sustainability. There are four goals about the environment: clean water, climate action, life on land, and life below water. 8 goals are about society: no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, and peace, justice, and strong institutions. And these 4 goals are about the economy: decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, responsible consumption and production. They call this representation the SDG wedding cake. In other words, we can't achieve decent economic growth or even food security without first taking care of our oceans, as was demonstrated in Newfoundland during the collapse of the Atlantic cod fisheries in the 1990s. And, to use the more recent example of the coronavirus crisis, we can't have everybody in good health and achieve no poverty without taking care first of our land, forests, and our greenhouse gas emissions. My video on coronavirus explains this in more details. With the 17 goals come targets and indicators. I am not going to bore you with all the 169 targets and 232 indicators, but if we look at the affordable and clean energy goal as an example, it has 5 associated targets which read like this. By 2030, ensure universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. By 2030, increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. By 2030, double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency, etc. And we can look at the performance of each country by indicator on this website. It looks like this for the United States, for instance. If a country is doing well on the SDGs, does that mean that they are more sustainable? Let's look at the top of the list. All these European countries and positive pursuits beyond the goals that you can organize by SDG or by topic. Let's look at waste, for instance. For waste to not work that needs to happen to achieve the 2030 agenda worldwide. But it is important to remember that if the environment is fragile, it can literally crash the wedding cake. If you find these videos useful and are wondering how you can help me.
So this basically SDGs are 17 goals, which are the 17 goals are across environment, social, and economy. And economy is the centermost thing, which very clearly, the video shows that unless and until you really look after your environment, which affects the society, which affects the economy, you really can't talk about a resurgent economy. You can't talk about a resurgent economy. This video also brought out the interconnectedness of things. So when you're talking about impact of COVID on the economy, you're talking about a very high level statement, because if you really break it down, it has affected the economy because it has affected the environment, which has affected the society, and which in turn has impacted the economy. So SDGs for me, I come from a impact assessment and background, which is our impact assessment reports are very valued by the investing community, because we look at the impact of all business decisions on environment and social, and of course on the environment. Like, are you making money or not is a very important question. How are you making money? How strongly are you making money? How strong is your business model for making money? All that is affected by environment and society, environment and social risk issues, and that is why I introduced this section, because when you look at the impact of COVID-19 when you are looking at addressing the impact of COVID-19 on economy and society, on the economy, you will have to look into the issues of the environment and the society. This particular thing referred to, there is something called the SDG Index India. If you want, I can leave the link site with Nikita, and she can share it with you. So India has been tracking the progress of its economy through the SDG goals. We are through these 17 SDG goals, and this information is tracked at a village and a district. At a district level, to the extent of a village level in some places. These SDG metrics are being mapped. SDG metrics of government schemes, how is it affecting the environment? Government schemes, how is it affecting the society? So the SDG Index, India is it's a fantastically produced document, which sort of shows you the impact that COVID has had on our economy and how we are getting over it. What are the things that we are focusing to address the impact? These are the type of things. You will find some lovely metrics. Goal 1 is about no poverty, and it talks about what is the current status of India on poverty, defines poverty, and it defines all those parameters about organized labor, number of people below the poverty lines, maternal health, houses. Similarly, goal number 2 is zero hunger. Zero hunger is a target, is a social target, and how many people have one meal a day, and there are almost about 169 targets on which this information is available. So if I can send that link, and you people can actually look at it and see how the economy is sort of getting up to the setback we've had because of COVID. Another thing, I just want to put, underlining the point that I was trying to make, that next year we're going to start seeing BRSR. I'm sure a lot of you people will be actively involved in helping your clients do the BRSR, which is business responsibility and social reporting. Business responsibility and sustainability reporting. These are the disclosures. This is the equivalent to a ESG disclosure, which will happen in India. It becomes mandatory from 22-23. It is mandatory from 22-23. And BRSR, it is very much within the, responsibility of the chartered accountants and the CS, because it is with the finance and the disclosure department. You'll have to file it. Currently, it is a self-assessment. BRSR is based on 9 principles and 54 core elements. It's borrowed from your national guidelines for responsible business conduct. For all of you who haven't seen NGRBCs and who are training or practicing CAs and CS, please, that becomes your Bible going forward. And I just wanted to bring out a point here that why ICAI is starting to talk about SDGs and sustainability is that this very important disclosure that you're going to start making from next year has 54 elements, of which 32 elements, the 32 core elements are referring to social standards. That means 60% of your BRSR score will be on social metrics. So for you to understand economy, you will have to start looking at it from understanding the environment and the social and how it affects the economy, for you to be able to give BRSR disclosures which are authentic and credible. Yeah. So social metrics, looking at social metrics and talking about social metrics in terms that are measurable will become a core skill that this particular group of people will need to start learning on. Yeah. I've just got one example here. And basically it says that demonstration, like, the BRSR talks about NGRBC, that's National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct, based on which you will file your BRSR, refers to the term employees. Okay. And BRSR has approximately 30 such similar metrics. In the current situation, while you have the principle and the core element quite clearly stated, beyond these two documents, there is nothing to guide the finance fraternity as to what are they going to be reporting on. For example, and why is it so important for you to start understanding these social metrics is because India has the dubious restriction of having only 190 women for every 1,000 men, and men's wages are 33% higher compared to women. So when you're talking about impact on the economy and you have to file a disclosure on employee, you will have to understand the finer aspects of why it is required. Okay. And that is why you will have to be referring to, you will be referring to a lot of other documents, to a lot of other legal aspects of the of our various laws to understand this in a much better way. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make here is the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Primarily, you will have to break down the impact into its various dimensions: positive, negative, intended, unintended. What is the impact? Who is impacted? How much are they impacted? What are the risks and opportunities of the impact? So the impact has to be looked into so many different dimensions. And when you're talking about impact of COVID-19 on the economy, you will have to break down the economy into two perspectives, which is the environment and how it affects, how the environmental issues affect the societal issues, and how these two together make a difference on the economy. Yeah. So these are again like what we talked about in terms of impact of COVID, is that it has changed the world. It has upended the world, and we are literally questioning all what we knew before. It has all what we thought we were experts on is no longer relevant, and we are entering an era where we are going to start learning and re-looking at doing things very differently. So my take, my request to the fraternity which is attending this session today is that you would have to start looking at economy from just numbers. You'll have to look beyond that and start learning some new skills, new understandings in terms of environment and social. And the only thing that I would like to say is that it's a new line of thought for everybody, not only for the financial. Even every different sector is having to look at their environmental and the social footprints in a very different way. But I think the finance and the accounting fraternity is going to add the biggest contribution to this learning, because you are the ones who will be filing these disclosures. And hence it'll be very, very important for you to understand and influence the way this body of knowledge grows. That's all from my side. Thank you so much. Nikita?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we don't have any questions right now.
Okay. You want to ask them? Can you please ask them if they have any questions? So I'd request the audience, is there any questions that you might have?
No, ma'am, we are not getting any questions right now.
Okay.
So, ma'am, if you want, you can repeat about the first dimension when member have asked about that.
So I assume they're asking about this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is the first dimension. So there's 5 dimensions of impact. And the first and the foremost is, what is the impact that we are talking? What is the impact that we are contributing to? Or what is the delta change that is the focus of our discussion? So like it also will greatly depend on the audience. It also greatly depends on the audience that the impact, who is discussing the thing. In the sense, depending upon who is discussing or who is the audience for the discussion, what changes. For example, if you look at a person in a society, the impact of COVID would be, the impact of COVID would be on the revenue, or whether they have an income or their poverty levels. Whereas if the focus of what is from, let's say, an investing community, their what will be on the risks and opportunities of that investment. So what is the delta change which is being studied?
So, ma'am, can we wind up?
Yeah, we can wind up. If there are no questions, then yeah.
Yes, ma'am, there are no further questions. I've checked it. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such an excellent session on COVID impact on economy. I think members would have also enjoyed your session. So, a formal vote of thanks from the member side also, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I have not been able to interact with you very well. And my name is Jyotsna Beliappa, and I would really appreciate it if you get in touch with me on LinkedIn. And so any clarification, further discussion that you would like to have, I'm more than willing to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Sonali. Thank you, ICAI, for giving me this opportunity. And I look forward to more interactions.